we can begin. So good morning, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you on our webinar, ReThink webinar on circular construction. We continue um, to be in this and to discover the best practices of circular construction in the world and especially Western Europe. Я швиденько скажу для української аудиторії про переклад, що у нас є асинхронний переклад, і внизу екрану ви можете обрати кнопочку переклад і перемкнутися на українську мову, якщо ви не розумієте англійської. Also, this is my first webinar with the bird, so please comment in the chat whether you like it or not. And today we're having Dominik Campanella from Concular, the co-founder and CEO of Concular. And this is the person who has been driving circular construction for 12 years or so, maybe even more. Not only advocating for circular construction, but also changing the practices, rules, and standards of the industry. And for us, for Ukraine, it's going to be very interesting. How did they manage, how they started, how they evolved, how they basically worked with the industry giants. And we will also get practical examples of the work of Concular that enables circular construction in Germany, but also in the entire European Union. So Dominik, thank you very much for joining today. We are thankful for the support from the side of Helvetas and Swiss Solidarity to make this webinar possible. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Roman, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to speak today. Let me just quickly share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So you should see my screen now, right? So you can see me, you can hear me. So
yes.
Perfect. So yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to speak today to you and to tell you a bit more about circular construction in Germany, what the progress was or is in the last years, and how it might help us or support also Ukraine in the future. I'm one of the co-founders of Concular. And Concular is basically an ecosystem, a digital ecosystem for circular construction. And the big question is like, why do we care about circular construction? And the answer is actually quite easy, because the construction sector is by far the largest polluter in the world. So we have numbers such as 60% of waste and 40% of GHG emissions. So it's really significant numbers we are talking here. I mean, very often we talk about our household waste, but our household waste is just an insignificant proportion to like the construction waste we are creating, and we are not recycling this waste or reusing this waste right now. And also this CO2 emissions are really high. Now, very often we talk about energy efficiency in buildings when we talk about CO2 emissions, but if you look at these emissions, you can actually see that most of these emissions right now are created due to the production of construction materials, around half of these. So 20% of all global GHG emissions is because of the production of construction materials. Now, why is that so? The answer is quite easy also here, because we are following the so-called take, make, waste model. So we take valuable resources out of our earth, we produce them, we put them into buildings, and sometimes after just a couple of years, so especially in the interior, we are taking these really valuable materials in a really good quality, and what are we doing with them? We are throwing them away. Also, a lot of them can be actually reused. But looking at it right now, only 1% of all materials are reused. So most of it is going into either landfilling or it's getting downcycled. And this is, of course, from an ecological standpoint, not really good. However, also from an economical standpoint, because we talk about really variable materials, and we're taking these variable materials and we're throwing them away. And so there's a lot of economical value behind, which can be generated if we think in circles and not anymore in this linear model. So you can really say the climate crisis decided on the construction side. And this is something also a lot of countries are more and more realizing. And so there's different measures they're doing. And one measure I would like to introduce, it's not in Germany, but it's in other countries like Denmark and France, is so-called CO2 limits. So they are really good because basically what these countries are saying is that you can still build whatever you want with whatever material you want. However, you are only able to build it if you are not above a certain threshold of CO2, above a certain limit of CO2. So in Denmark, it would be 12 kilos CO2 per square meter per year. So a building in Denmark would be for 50 years on average. And so you can only build this building. So you only get a building permission if in your planning you can show that you're below this limit. So with wood, of course, it would be much easier to build than with concrete, but you can still build with concrete, but you have to think a bit more about the architecture. Now, if you're reusing materials in that, you would, these reused materials would count in with 0 kilo CO2 because the savings of reusing materials is like 95 to almost 100% of CO2. Now, what they also did here is they start at 12 kilo, but they are every 2 years decreasing the CO2 limit to 2.5 kilo. So 2023, they introduced it. Next year, it should go to 10.5 kilo and so on. This is a really smart way because it's going down, so like the industry and everyone can adapt to it. However, here, like every year before they decrease the CO2 limit, they have like a discussion. And this discussion was created this year. So as said, like the plan was to decrease to 10.5. But what they did was they calculated how much CO2 budget do we have to reach the 1.5 degree aim, so the climate goal, and how much buildings do we want to build in that time. And then they basically calculated the amount of CO2 which is still available, divided by the amount of square meters to build. And then the conclusion was if they want to reach with 50% probability, so it's not even that high, the 1.5 degree goal, and they had to reduce to 5.8. And there was a lot of discussion, I mean, it's politics. And in the end, it was agreed to lower the limit to 7.1 instead of 10.5. This is already lower than it was, which was intended in 2029. Meaning this curve is much steeper, meaning like it's much faster that you have adapt to this new way of building buildings, of this new way of building CO2 reduced buildings. And it's also quite interesting why they're doing that. Or maybe, I mean, in Germany, this is not introduced right now. And this is like a CO2 clock, meaning like in 3 years, all the CO2 budget is basically gone to reach the 1.5 degree aim. And Germany already announced that they will also introduce that. So it's not a matter of if they want to introduce that, but when do they introduce it? And if they introduce it, then of course it will be much steeper because we have still far less time left. Now, I also asked the people in Denmark, why are they doing this? Why are they doing these regulation? And they said, like, it's quite easy. 40 years ago, there was like the same discussion about energy efficiency. And what they did then was to also had like really good regulation, and the industry adapted to it. And in that time, companies arose like Rockwool, Velux. These are like really big manufacturers now of construction materials, and they were really successful in the market because basically they had the best products adapted to all the regulations. Now Denmark is saying the same will happen with the resource efficiency. And this is why we put the regulation here now, so our industry can adapt to it, and our industry will export products to all over the world. And this is right now happening. So meaning, sustainable construction, circular construction is a competitive advantage. It can be create a whole new industry for a country, which is then, of course, thriving in terms of economic values. So it's quite interesting because some countries are seeing sustainability as a burden, and then there are countries who are seeing sustainability as something which is good for the economy, because they will be then the export, they will export all the materials. So this is something I think to look at. So basically what we have to do, because reused materials is 0 kilo CO2, we have to look at buildings who are already there as a mines, as a source for new products, as a source for new buildings. And we started already 12 years ago. So one of our co-founders, Mark, he is an architect for more than 35 years. And he was on construction sites every day. On the one construction site, they took out materials, they landfilled these materials. On the other side, they took new materials, the same materials, but new, and put it into buildings. And he said, like, this is totally nonsense that on one side you trash the materials, and on the other side, you use the same materials, but in a new way. So that's why we then created the marketplace, saying like we have to connect the demand and the supply of these materials. So we have to match it. And this is what we then created, Restado. It's now the largest the largest marketplace in Europe. And what we discovered here is that we can especially reach smaller businesses and private people. So it's really great. But if you really look, like, where is the big CO2, where's the big economically and ecological effect, is the large construction projects, it's the professional actors. And they do not use Restado because because why? And this why we ask them. We just ask them, why are you not reusing materials? Why are you not using Restado? And just have to. And they said the answer of them was like, because we need a certain amount of materials at a certain location, at a certain time, in a certain quality, with the warranty. And at the marketplace, at like a classified ads marketplace, you cannot get this. So, but we wanted to make that possible, and this is why we said, okay, we have to make a new company which is actually looking at all the process before and after matching these materials. And this is why we created then Concular, where we say it's only for professional actors, only for large construction projects, and is able to fulfill all these stuff. And we are right now around 65 people all around Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And yeah, we work with large clients, public and private. We have a lot of partners. We're trying to partner a lot with manufacturers, architecture offices, and so on. And we say that it needs actually 3 steps. We have to digitize, we have to analyze, and we have to optimize. So, meaning with the digitization, the big challenge we have right now for new buildings, we don't even digitally document what's in a building. So if you build a new building right now, in most of the cases, after 1 year, no one knows anymore what's in a building. If you don't know what's in a building, you are not able to reuse the materials, because when the deconstruction is happening, the deconstruction company normally has just like 2-3 weeks time to get rid of everything. That's too less time to really reuse materials. So we have to digitize new and existing buildings so that we know what's in a building, and when we know what's in a building, we're able also to reuse these materials. And then when we know what's in a building, we are able to say like how much CO2 is in a building, or like what does it make sense to reuse a certain materials. And then if then the deconstruction is happening, we are able to sell these back to manufacturers or into new buildings. Starting with the first one, for new materials, for new buildings, there's a concept called building resource passport. So basically, it's a passport for every building in which all the materials are digitized. So we have it in Germany already. We have it by a certification. system called DGNB, so it's the German Building Sustainability Building Council, and also by the government. So they will introduce it now next year as required for every new building which is created in Germany. And that will help, of course, for the new buildings who are built. However, that is not, but these buildings, they will be built now and they will be hopefully reconstructed in 40 years or later. So it will not have a direct impact right now, but it's good for the future. The big issue is more the buildings who are getting deconstructed every day in Germany. So around 20,000 buildings are getting deconstructed every day in Berlin. And so what we did here was that we created the software with which you can go into a building way before the deconstruction happens. Because what we discovered is mostly, like 2 years before that the deconstruction is happening in a building. So you go into a building with our software and you can really easy and really fast take all the materials on your phone. It looks like that, so you can just install it on your phone, then you get all the materials, and then you have it digitally. You can also use something like 3D scan, so you can use like a sensor, which is basically getting everything in a building for like in 1 or 2 minutes or in a room, and then you can use AI or computer vision algorithms, which can then already say like, this is a window, this is a door, and so on. And so it's really fast. And this is, of course, great. And we did it for more than 450 buildings in Germany. But in the same time, 20,000 buildings were deconstructed. So we thought like, okay, it's now a great technology, but we want that every building in Germany who's getting deconstructed has to look at what materials are in and if we can reuse these materials. So the German market is very special because Germans, they love to follow rules. Rules are everything in Germany. So, and what we discovered is like if you build a building in Germany, you need a lot of permissions. You need like sometimes 2-3 years to get all the permissions. It's like amazing system. And when you deconstruct a building, you don't need any permission. So you need like 2-3 years to construct a building. But if you want to deconstruct a building, you don't need anything. You can just tear it down. And this is amazing that on the one side, we have this whole regulated market. On the other side, we don't have any regulation at all. So then we thought like, how can we make that now required? And we thought like, okay, if Germans really like regulation, then let's do like our own regulation and create a standard. And so this is what we then did. So DIN is like the standardization committee of Germany. And so we created a DIN standard on how to do so-called pre-demolition audits. So how to, basically how to assess materials before the construction and how they can be reused. We did it with like 30 leading companies in Germany. So we did do all the big construction companies, universities, and so on. And we created this as a standard. And this is really amazing because right now, so we published that in September last year. We published that in German and English. So you're also able to just search for this DIN spec 91484. You can download it in English. You can also use it for yourself. It's free. Everyone can use it. So it's open source. And the interesting stuff, because we introduced it in English, it was already adapted in Denmark, in Switzerland, and in France, meaning that a German standard is not adapted in Germany, but it's adapted in other countries, which is quite funny. But what is also quite interesting is that now all the public buildings in Germany are following the standard. As said, like we introduced it 1 year ago, and it's now already applied to a lot of the public buildings, and it will be getting required next year. Meaning we can have really a big impact if we not only do like the digital part, but we combine it with like regulation and standards and so on. It's a really big impact, and this is what we're doing more and more right now. We're creating now a new standard also, and how a deconstruction concept could look. Now, we have now everything. So let's say we went into a building, we digitized everything, and then what we can do is we can do like a lot of interesting analysis. I give you one example. We had one building in Germany, we digitize everything, and these are slates. And we have 800 square meters of these slates. And the idea is to tear down the building and to build a new building with, again, slates. So what we calculated is how much does it cost to deconstruct in Germany these slates? So it's almost 13,000 euros. And how much does it cost to buy new slates? We did not say 800 square meters because you see here there's some damage and so on. So we said like 640 square meters, which is around 80% of it. So it costs almost 55,000 euros to get rid of it and buy new ones. And then we analyzed how much would it cost to take off these slates without destroying them. So it costs almost double the price, but also how much does it cost to refurbish them and transport them? And so in total, it's 21,000 euros. So it's 33,000 euros less if you reuse the materials than to get rid of them and buy new ones. Meaning, reusing in the same project, you can save a lot of money by reusing materials. But you would save also a lot of money if you do that and then sell these materials, because I said like if you buy new ones, you pay around 40,000 euros. Now you can sell maybe the reclaimed ones for around 30,000 euros, which makes again also a profit of still like 10,000 euros. Meaning like in every scenario, you would get money out of reusing these materials instead of having new materials. Meaning like if you have a building, an existing building, it's much more worth because you can sell these materials. So it's really a lot of money in some buildings which you can make by selling the materials. And to enable that, we created a software called Circular LCA, where you can do like an LCA, so life cycle assessment, and you can measure all the stuff. So I just told you like you can make money with it. And so what you can do with our software is you can actually calculate how much money can you make in selling these materials, because before you paid for the landfilling, now you can make money for getting for selling them. So you can make out of the cost block a value block, and we can give you that number. And normally you can also use the number to sell your building for a higher price or put it on your balance sheet for a higher price. You can also calculate how circular is your building. We calculated with 5 different factors. So like, where's the material coming from? Is it easily deconstructible? Is it easily separable? And then can it be reused or recycled? Now, giving you the example of a window. A window normally has primary material, so it's not secondary material, so it's not really good pre-use. But a window you can normally deconstruct really easy. You can, based on the frame and the glass, also normally separate it really easily. If a window in Germany is older than 5 years, you cannot reuse it very easily because it doesn't meet the energy efficiency requirements anymore. But very often you can recycle it very good. So it has like a medium score. And then you get a score between 0 and 100. And then it tells you how circular the building is. And you can do a lot of other stuff. Like you can even like say like what is the weight of my building? And like which materials have the most CO2 and so on. So you can do a lot of analysis. And you can also do variant comparison. I think this is also quite interesting. For example, if you're building a new building, you can create different variants and say, like, in this one building, I put new materials, in the other building, I put reclaimed materials, and so on. And then you can compare it, how much CO2 it has, how much is my building worth, and so on. Now, if you did all of that, this analysis, and then there's the deconstruction, you are able to reuse these materials. What we did with Concular and the Concular software is that we created also plugin for all the planning software. So, for example, this is Autodesk Revit. So it's a planning software for architects, and maybe some of you use them. And you can install the Concular plugin here, and it tells you how much CO2 your whole. So it's a live LCA basically. It can also tell you how circular is your whole building. But you have here these buttons where you can click on optimize. And when you click on optimize, we give you recommendations on how to optimize it for more circularity. For example, if you have a new window, we can recommend you use a reclaim window, and we have this reclaim window here. You can just directly order it. So it integrates into the process of an architect. And I think this is very important and to understand, like, we don't want to create a complete new process. We want to integrate in the existing process, because what we realized is that it doesn't make sense to create complete new processes, because then a lot of people have to adapt to it, and it takes a lot of time, but we don't have any time anymore. So we have to kind of hijack the current process and put it in, put our software and everything in, so to make it very fast. We also have a shop, and in this shop, you can see all the materials, you can order the materials. The shop is only open for businesses, so only professionals can buy here. And yeah, basically, we sell a lot. So you can see some buildings we're right now selling. And yeah, so basically, this is something also really great. And also because some materials we can not reuse in Germany. For example, windows. For windows, in Germany, we have really strict regulation on energy efficiency and so on. So we also partner with initiatives like ReThink. ReThink is a Swiss association, and basically what they do is, like, they take all these windows which are not getting reused in Germany, and they send it to Ukraine. And so of course, like we don't sell them to this association. We give it for free. They take it, they transport it, and then it's going into Ukraine. And I think this is a really good thing to like support also Ukraine with like yeah, basically materials as much as possible, because this is very there's a high scarcity as far as I understand. Now, very important is also the infrastructure for reusing materials, because very often you have a deconstruction project, you get out the materials, but you don't have a new project, or the new project is starting maybe 2, 3, 4 months later. So you need storage facilities in between. And this is why we created the so-called concept of so-called urban mining hubs. So urban mining hubs are basically storage facilities where these materials can be stored, refurbished, and then put into the new building. We created our first urban mining hub last year in Berlin, thanks to also the city of Berlin and Alba. And so it's really working really well. So we, I don't know, thousands of materials were already stored there, and every day there's trucks going in and out. And we will open still this year a lot of these urban mining hubs in Germany. And I think this is a really amazing thing. Also, another really important part is in Germany, and maybe it's in Ukraine the same, is about insurance. So if people are buying reclaimed material, they often think it has a lower quality, and they think they don't get a, so if something is getting damaged and so on, that they have a problem. So this is why we created with the largest insurance company in Germany, VHB Versicherung, an insurance specifically for reclaimed construction materials. So you can insure any damage on reclaimed construction material. Meaning, because this is not something which a new material has. This is only for reclaimed materials. Meaning, in the end, a reclaimed material has even a better has a better insurance coverage than a new material. So it's cheaper, it's faster to get, it has much less CO2, and it has a better insurance coverage, which is a lot of arguments to use reclaimed materials instead of new materials. And what's also quite interesting is, like, when we created this insurance with the insurance company, we had to assess the risk of a damage for the materials. And the insurance company, they showed us, like, when is normally a damage happening in such a material. And normally it happens in the first year after the production of a material, because there might be some production issues and so on. So it's getting damaged. or in the last year of the insurance, because people discover that they still have an insurance and it will expire soon. So in the first year, so what we discovered is if you reuse a material, such a brick, for example, you don't have this issue of a damage in the first year because the brick was already in the building for 50, 60 years. So there is no production issue anymore because it would have been shown way before, meaning that a reclaimed material has a far less risk of getting damaged than a new material. So because people think always reclaimed materials are lower quality, this is not true. They are even better quality than new material. This is what we discovered. And with that, we already had more than 450 successful projects. And what I want is, I want to show you now some of these projects. But I quickly have to drink something. So starting with this is an industry hall in Berlin. In this industry hall, PV models, the modules were created, so like photovoltaic. And that factory was closed down. And then we were like, then we were told that we should sell the whole industry hall. So because they want to get rid of it, they wanted to build offices and so on. And so what we did was, it's 100 meters long hall. And we sold the whole hall as one part. So you can see how they right now deconstruct the whole industry hall. And this industry hall will be taken down and it will be put on another place in Germany, the same as it is. So it's a one-to-one reuse of a complete building, which is amazing because normally they would have get rid of all the stuff, it would have been landfilled and so on. And right now, what they're doing is they take these really valuable materials and they just create a new factory out of it. And this is, I think, really, really good example of reusing in the best way, reusing the complete building as it is. Now, another building, it's in Düsseldorf. It's the former headquarter of Vodafone, so telecommunication company. It's really beautiful building and will be not teared down because it's also but what they did, like it's not anymore the headquarters of Vodafone, and they will strip out all the materials which are in the building and they will put in like administrative offices for like the government. And normally the idea would be to strip out really everything and get rid of it. What we did was we went into the building. It was around 20,000 square meters. We digitized everything in the building. And then we discovered a lot of really good materials, such as windows, not windows, but partition walls, kitchen lightnings, and so on. And and then what we did is we worked together with the manufacturers to create take back systems and to get also the recertification of the materials. And then we sold these materials on our shop and so on. And we sold a lot of these materials and then we took them out. So you can see, for example, how the partition walls are getting deconstructed here and how they're getting refurbished and they put it in. So here, this is in Düsseldorf and this is in Münster, which is around 50 kilometers away from Düsseldorf. And so they put it in here again. The same partition walls. And I think this is amazing. The same with the kitchen. They took it out here. They put it in here. This is the door. The door they use now for like sitting, for like seats. And I think the result is really good because we were able to recirculate around 70% of the material. Normally it's around 1%. We are at 70 here. We saved more than 35% of CO2 emissions. And I think this is the most interesting part. We made 160,000 euros in revenue and 600,000 euros in demolition cost. So it's almost more than 750,000 euros, and this is now part of a public in the public hand. So it's tax money. So we save 750,000 euros of tax money, which is good for the whole society in Germany because we are not landfill the materials, but we sold the materials. Another good example is this modern office building in Frankfurt. It's called Prisma. And this office building is already like 20, 30 years old. And if you look into this office building, you see it's not really modern anymore. So they had really old colors, not really nice looking partition walls and so on. So the idea of the project developer was to strip out everything and to put in new stuff in. But what would happen is you would take these really modular partition walls, which are built in a modular way. You take them out, you trash them, and you put in again modular partition walls, which doesn't make any sense because yeah, you can reuse them. So we talked with the project developer, and they were very open for it. And what we did was to take these partition walls, put it down to the basement of the building. There we put like a production facility or like a refurbishment facility, and we refurbished all these partition walls, and then and we put it in again. So you can see how they are stored here and how they were refurbished. And then we put it in. It's the same. So like these old school partition walls you see here are the same as these. They were just painted in a new way. And they look like new. It's really, really good quality. And here you can see how it looks like when it was like in the building. It's a perfect office now. It's like everything was now rented out, and they save huge amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of euros, because they just did not buy. I mean, 1 meter, so it's not a lot. This is 1 meter, cost around 500 euros in Germany, and I mean they had 500 meters. So it's a lot of money they invested, they saved here. And this is all the trash which was created. So before it would have been tons of trash. Now it's just this pile of trash. But because I mean, you see it here, like they have like now much more open space concept. They didn't use they didn't use all of the partition walls anymore. So the rest, which was not used in this project, where they were transported to our mining hub, as explained before. And what we did then here was to put it into other projects all over Berlin. So here you can see how the same partition walls are now in another project in Berlin, and how it's getting painted before like the finishing. And here how it's put in, and all the clients are really happy. You know, we saved around 95% of the CO2, 25% of the cost. So reclaimed materials are cheaper than new materials, and they're much more available. So it only took 4 weeks versus 14 weeks, which is also really good. And of course, we did an LCA, so we know how much tons of CO2 we saved and materials and so on. So this is, of course, also very important. Now, we not only do interior, because the examples were a lot of interior right now, but also like proper materials such as bricks. Bricks is something I really like. So we have here in Berlin a development called Siemensstadt Square, where like there's a lot of brick buildings and they're getting deconstructed. And what we do here is like we take out these bricks. You can see it here. Then, so these are like full bricks, and then we have like bricks with holes, and how they're getting taken out here. Then they're getting tested. And if they fulfill all the tests, and the testing is not really expensive, if they fulfill all the tests, then they're getting basically taken out of the buildings, and then they're getting put on pallets, and then they're getting reused and resold. We're selling around 2 million bricks per year, meaning we are one of the largest brick sellers in Germany, and we only sell reclaimed bricks. We don't sell new bricks, and of course with that we have the largest sellers of reclaimed bricks in Germany, maybe in Europe. And it's an amazing concept, and bricks are really, I mean, they're made for 200, 300 years. They're not I mean, it's basically stone. It's not something which is getting damaged very easily. And so if you put it in the building in a good way, you can reuse it for a lot of times. And we can do all the tests. And this is, I think, very important, these tests, because yeah, in Germany, you have to apply some certification. Another example, which is a bit different, is but football. So it's a nice example. So the European Championship was in Germany this year, and this is the Stuttgart Stadium. And before the European Championship, there was the task to refurbish the stadium. And the task was to get rid of these 4,000 red chairs, for example, because they had created new chairs. And so our task was then to find buyers for 4,000 red chairs. It's not an easy task, and it's not a task. I mean, there's not a lot of construction projects who need red chairs, especially 4,000 of them. And so we sold some of them to like cinemas and so on, which can use them. But we thought like in the society in Germany, there's not a lot of awareness about the problem in the construction sector, and that reuse is something good. So we used that to do a lot of awareness building of circular construction. And then what we did was we went to the press and we said like, so we went to like, this is TV, this is like a lot of like the press in Germany, and we said like, you are able to buy one part of your stadium. And then we had like a public website where they could buy these chairs. And also here, we even did like, I said, like TV spots on that and so on. And then like basically we deconstructed the chairs. You can see one of these premium chairs were deconstructed, and a lot of these like we sold one chair for 20 euros. And it was quite interesting because we sold all of the 4,000 shares. There was a huge run on the shares. And there were people coming saying like, I have like a ticket for the stadium for this one specific seat for like the last 10 years, and they want to have this specific seat. And this is how this picture was created, because then the people went into that and they wanted to search for their seat, which they used to sit in for the last 10 years. And they took it, and now I think in Germany, in 4,000 homes, there are these red seats. I mean, it's interesting because I mean, I don't know who puts these seats in his apartment, but it's a quite nice story because every time they see the seat, they have now like emotional value to this building or this material. And this is actually what we have to create. We have to create emotional values for the materials, and with that we can increase the value of these materials. Because before you had to pay 5 euros to get rid of the seat, now you get 20 euros because someone really likes the seat. So you can really create value by putting it into putting it in emotional thing. You can see also how they were deconstructed here. You can also see that we sold much more stuff, like also the windows. The windows were getting rid of. But also here you can see from the football team, like the whole furniture and so on was also deconstructed. Now, another example is also facade materials. So this is a facade in Germany, or this is a public building, and we took off the facade. It's granite stone, and what we did was then to do different tests on like how to clean the surface of the stone facade, and then of course you can reuse these facade, but you can see here they are really thick, and like you can cut them into twice, and then you can reuse it the double amount. Or we work together with a manufacturer and we put some cork on the bottom. And this is really good because if you put cork on the bottom, you can put it on the floor without gluing it. So meaning this stone or this granite can be used as a flooring, but without gluing it on the bottom. So meaning that in 20 years, when you don't need this floor anymore, you can just take it out and put it again somewhere else. So it can be reused for a lot of time because this is stone. I mean, you can use the stone also for 200, 340, 400 years. But if you glue the stone, it's getting damaged when you take it out and you cannot reuse it anymore. And this is also a really good example in how you take a material which is really valuable and transform it to a circular material which can be reused a lot of time. And so these are just a couple of examples of like more than 450 projects we did. I hope I could give you some impression on like what is already possible. And of course, we are not at the end. We are just at the beginning. For us, like for Concular, our aim is not that you cannot choose between construction and software construction anymore, but construction is by definition circular. And this is what we want to reach, and this is what we want to do together. This is why our model is together we are circular. And yeah, thanks a lot again for the invitation, and I hope I could give you some insights. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Dominik. It's been fascinating, I guess. Uh, Gesundheit.
Yeah, thank you. I'm still a bit sick, but yeah.
Yes. Thank you especially then for joining today. It's a fascinating story. I mean, I myself have so many questions that I don't think we will have enough time to discuss them. But I also urge everybody to put your questions to the Q&A section underneath the screen, because we are going to have a discussion exactly with Dominik about the cases he presented, and probably the first thing I want to react to is this case with the stadium and chairs, which is just amazing and it's so creative. And maybe just to recall the story of 2012 from Kiev, Ukraine, when we had this Euro 2012 and we had to refurbish the Olympic Stadium in Kiev. So it's just to be 100,000 something chairs, and then it was a bit less. But anyway, so they have removed all the chairs, and there was no creative approach whatsoever like you had. So what they did was just they donated these chairs to very small stadiums, basically football fields, not even a stadium, just a football field of the village or district capitals of 5,000 people, 10,000 people. So almost every football field in every region of Ukraine had some cheers from the Olympic Stadium from Kiev. And that was very kind of nice for those people because they could feel they are sitting on something historic, something nice and important. Let's see.
And yeah, maybe also reacting directly to that, I think,
Yeah.
and this is what, so these materials, they tell a story. And I think this is something important, which we have to do much more. For example, in the office I work, it's 70% of reclaimed materials. I'm right now not in the office, unfortunately, but every material which is put into the building, you can tell this material was before like there and there and there. This was the material which was before in the former headquarter of the transportation company of Berlin and so on. So it might be just like a window or like a door, but if you can tell a story behind, then it's much more than a door. Then it's something really valuable. I mean, there's collectors, right? Every like people collecting whatever cards and so on. And I mean, the value of the card, it's paper. It's not worth almost nothing, but the emotional value behind is quite high. And if we are trying to put the emotional value on the materials, then we are much more able to reuse these materials.
Yes. 100%. I will start from the question which just arrives live now in the Q&A. A lot of interior materials you showed were within 20 years or so. What are the oldest interior materials you encountered and that they still had some value?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. There might be materials which are really, really old. So these are historical materials who can be also like 200, 300 years old. So like the bricks, normally they're like 100 years old. They're quite easy to reuse because they're again like this material is not produced anymore, or like very old windows or very old lighting and so on. But let's say, I mean, in Germany after the Second World War, so like after 1950 in the 1950s, we didn't had a lot of materials, so we put in a lot of not that good quality materials, and so but still here, especially the technical equipment from these years is really good because technical equipment like, I don't know, HVAC or whatever, it's documented really well and was maintained really well over the years. So we can reuse these materials also very good. But let's say a window from the 1950s normally is not in a good quality and we cannot reuse them anymore. But actually the age is not a big problem. It's more like the how to say, like the toxic materials, like in the 70s, 80s, we have a lot of materials which are toxic. And so in Germany, you are required to do like a report on the toxicity of the materials before you deconstruct. It's done independently from circular construction. And we have to check the toxicity now. But anyway, it's really good to reuse these materials also.
Thank you. And there is a question about conformity assessment. So, well, it's procedures for using building components in terms of conformity assessment. So what's the procedure, how you assess conformity?
So we went really deep into the German law. So I can only say it for the German law. But in Germany, if you reuse materials, you don't need a conformity assessment for most of the materials. Only if these materials have either something to do with like the fire resistance of the building or with the static of the building. So like a steel beam, for example, or like a fire resistance door. So basically, if it's like, let's say a partition wall, you don't have to test anything. You can just put it in. If it's a brick and you don't use it for like static weight, you also don't need to test it. But if we need to test it, so for example, for a steel beam, there is this ISO norm, 1090 it's called. And so there's a procedure of testing these steel beams on reusing them. So very often in the standardization, also in the international standardization, so ISO norms or European norms, there's already standard in. And so for the steel beams, for example, if it's if it's produced earlier than 1970 and it's documented, then you can just reuse the steel beams without any testing. For the fire resistant doors, you can do like I would say they're like these official persons in Germany for proving fire resistancy, and you can just tell them like you want to reuse the door, and then they can make like a report saying like all these characteristics of the door are still there because there was no. So they check like, is the door, did anything happen to the door since it was put in? So was there an earthquake? Was there water damage? Was there fire? If nothing of that was in the time, they just say like it still have the same characteristics, so you can reuse the door. And so there's a lot of different ways. But as said, it's Germany, so it's for the German law. It might be different in different countries. Yeah.
Yes. And what you described sounds extremely sober and like a common sense thing, which I guess for the German law system is, well, I don't know if it's the rule that it's all based on common sense, or sometimes it's too much regulations. But what you described sounds very, very logical.
So maybe also here, what we created was like we worked together with a lot of law companies in creating basically in creating a book for the public. I mean, you know, like Concular is like a private company. Of course, we want to make money, but in the end, like our purpose is not to get rich. Our purpose is to bring the whole topic to a standard. So what we do, we publish a lot of our projects and a lot of our knowledge. We give also a lot of seminars and so on. And so we created this handbook for everyone to see like how the law is working and how do we use these materials. Because we don't care if people are doing it with Concular, they can also do it by themselves. It doesn't matter as long as they just do it.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you for answering. Oh, wow. There are many questions on your economic uh, parameters, I
Yeah.
guess. So I will just read the questions, and maybe
Yeah.
we can answer one by one.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on your business model? What's your annual revenue? What's your number of employees? But I remember that it's 65. You said that. How exactly revenue is calculated per project? Are there any plans for geographical expansion in the EU and beyond?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, how do we make money is the question. And we make money by first of all the software. Of course, our software has some costs. It's not a lot of money, but yeah, it's like a subscription-based model. But most of the money we make by selling the materials, because very often we get the materials for free from our from the building owners, because they save the deconstruction costs, and then we sell the materials for a value. And like yeah, basically the difference between is like our profit. And we also do some consulting, of course. And so we get I cannot tell you like the exact amount of our revenue, but it's yeah, decent. So it's enough to fund yeah, 65 people. And so there must be some money made with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and regarding geographic expansion, yes, I mean, it's a challenge for every country in the world. But in Germany, we already had the largest construction market in Europe. I mean, also someone in the question said like it's very complex, the model we're doing. And yes, it's complex because we basically have a software, we have like an operative business, we have a consulting business, and so on. So it's three different companies, kind of. And we have to focus right now on like the complexity in Germany, and we also already in Austria and Switzerland, so German-speaking countries. But we, of course, have plans also to go to other countries, but it depends a lot on the funding.
yeah,
We don't have so much money to just go into another country, because it takes some time to build up such a company.
yeah. Obviously. Yeah, that was the next question indeed. Incredible job. Your system looks very complex, operating with a lot of data. Impressive.
Yeah.
How did you start it with such an ambitious, um, with
Yeah.
such an ambition? Well, how did you start it? You basically described that, but what type of funding
Mm.
did you involve? And there was also my question, which I just wrote down because I want to elaborate on this one. You were describing the process when you were moving from just Restado to Concular to this pre-demolition assessment of buildings to go into those 450 buildings and taking pictures and digitizing what's in there. I mean, this is a lot of work and this is a lot of time. And basically, before having some revenue streams, you must fund it somehow. So
Yeah.
what was your initial funding? Where
Yeah.
your initial investment came from?
So yeah, we had the initial funding from the government. They also it's something. It was like a funding. It was like how to say, it was a debt, basically. So they did
Loan?
not give us a loan, right? They did
Hmm.
not give us a grant, but a loan. Basically, that loan was also tiered to investors. So, like, we got investment from Norway, like 40,000 euros, and then the German government gave us also a loan, which we already paid back, of 180,000 euros. And yeah, with that money, so it was a bit more than 200,000 euros, we were able to, of course, explore and so on. Yeah, and yeah, you're completely right. It takes some time. I would say it takes maybe for us 1.5 years where we were able to sustain our own operations. And so, yeah, I'm really happy that the German government supported us on that. And what I can also say, the European Union is also supporting such projects, and there's also funding grants on a European level. And I think Ukraine is also eligible for getting some of these grants. So I can just encourage you also to look for grants there. Yeah. But yeah,
Okay.
basically, it would not have been possible to just do it out of our pocket because, yeah, I said
Yeah.
it's also kind of complex. It takes some time.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I get it right that you have basically started Concular having 220,000 euros
Yeah,
from Norway
exactly.
investor and government.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
And like,
that's super cool. But also a lot of enthusiasm and probably
yeah.
not paying yourself
So
very decent salary at first.
yeah, exactly. This is true, and a lot of supporters. And so,
Uh-huh.
so this is a topic a lot of people are interested in, and we got a lot of support from private companies. I mean, not money, but like they gave us
Uh-huh.
projects and so on. And
Uh-huh.
also, I think there was one question: how much do we work with the public
Uh-huh.
hand? And 50% of our projects are by cities, by the government, by yeah, the state, because um, they are the ones who are building most of the project. I mean, like a lot of the construction activity is by public construction. And so they are working together. It takes much longer to work with them because, yeah, bureaucracy and so on.
Yeah.
But if you find the right people, and they also want, I mean, the public, they have some, or the government, they have like a kind of a, how to say, they must be the first ones who move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they are trying to do that.
I had also a note about this just to continue this topic about the motivation of public organizations, the governments, the cities to go into this and to support you because you mentioned during the presentation that although this DIN spec is not kind of a normative for everybody in Germany,
Yeah,
public
not yet.
buildings
Yeah,
and public actors are especially using it.
yeah.
But what was their initial motive? Is it because they feel, I mean, this pressure that public organizations have to be pioneers in green
Mm,
procurement, in green
yeah.
practices, la la la? Or was it your authority and image and kind of push from
Yeah.
society or NGOs that motivated them?
I think it's a mix. And in the end, it comes down to the individual people. We always think like government is like some people, but like it in the end, these are also people. These are
Yeah.
also thinking about our environment, and they know like we have to do something, and they have the power of like large construction projects. And they said like, yes, we have to be on the forefront, and I really want to support like the reuse of materials. In the end, it's because of people. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and of course, it was pressure from the public, but in Germany, it's quite much easier to adapt it on public buildings than on private buildings because of some law. And so, for example, a city, they can just say like, yes, we're doing that now. That's it. They don't, they just put like in their city parliament, they just have to say like, let's do it. And this is
Hmm.
what happened in Germany. Like we went to some of the cities, said like, this is what we think is useful, and then they just did it. Also because a lot of cities pledged that they will be CO2 neutral until 2035,
Hmm.
but they cannot be CO2 neutral if they still build buildings. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's why they have to start with thinking about that.
Exactly. Yes, amazing. Thank you. So it gives us an insight because we kind of have this decentralization reform in Ukraine and communities, local
Mhm.
governments, they get more power, more authority. But of
Ah,
course,
great.
they cannot do things that are like that are in contrary with the national law.
Yeah.
So, but in this case, I understand that this the construction policies and rules they are not in they're not in conflict with national law. They're going beyond it and they are bringing extra commitment.
Yeah, and maybe to add here, in Germany, a lot of state on a state level, not on a like on a government, but the states have like a lot of independence here in Germany, and construction is state level. So like all the
Uh-huh.
rules of construction on a state level. So we have 16 states in Germany,
Hmm.
and like they all do their own rules.
Which ones then you would find the most advanced on circular construction? Is it like Westphalia or
Yeah,
Bavaria or I don't know?
Berlin and Bavaria and
Mm-hmm,
Baden-Württemberg.
mm-hmm.
So it's the south mostly. Yeah, so they're
Okay,
doing quite good legislation. Yeah,
interesting.
and then
We'll
maybe
move.
also from the cities, you have Berlin, you have Munich, you have Cologne, you have Stuttgart. So all these large cities, and Hamburg is also really well in that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Still, quite some questions. Maybe it's a provocative one, but I can imagine it would be raised here in Ukraine if we do something similar. But maybe you also had such kind of critics in Germany, which would say, okay, but that example that you've shown with the slates
Yeah.
demonstrates that you would not only avoid 33,000 euros in costs, you would also kind of limit the production of new slates, which means it's less GDP, so
Hmm.
less economic output, and we should probably support. Let's imagine someone says this: we should support German economy, German production, la la la, especially if the slates are made in Germany. So
Yeah.
some people could point on you
Yeah.
and say, okay, you want to slow down our economic progress, and I hear
Yeah.
that. It's not that I
Yeah.
hear it often in Ukraine, but I hear these
Yeah.
consultations worldwide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where do you did you have this first of all, and what would be your answer?
Yeah, the question, we sometimes, but not very often, to be honest, because manufacturers also realize that they have to change their business model. So they are going more and more into the reuse of construction materials. So basically, most of the materials are not produced in Germany, first of all.
Mm,
And second, there's still economic value in refurbishing the materials. So
mm-hmm.
we had a study on like how much jobs can be created if we completely go for a circular construction economy. And it's around 500,000 jobs because you need complete new jobs like deconstructing the
Yeah.
buildings, refurbishing the materials, storage facilities, and so on. So meaning like stuff we didn't like in the somewhere in other countries is now going into Germany. So it's basically something economically really good for us. And
Mm-hmm.
because Germany doesn't have a lot of like resources, like
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
basically, we have to get everything from outside. And so now it's much better for Germany. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah,
Your answer completely leads to into another my question, because it's exactly about labor
yeah,
and the price of labor and the
yeah,
tax on labor, because
yeah.
it's often we have this system where tax on labor is very high, nature-based or whatever tax on materials is sometimes not sufficient, especially in Ukraine. Well, we also have cheaper labor in Ukraine, so that's more or less equal. But then you are right that all these pre-demolition audits, all these digitalizations, refurbishments, they all have to be executed by people. And I was wondering whether you have any like special tax regimes in Germany for those who are involved in circularity, because obviously it's much more labor to refurbish things, to bring them like to a new life cycle than just to buy a new one. So yeah, especially I mean tax on labor. If there is any special regime, let's say for Concular as a circular construction enabling company, or you have just a general condition with, let's say, a concrete manufacturer.
Yeah, so there is no money you get from the government or so for like reusing materials or so, right? Like the labor is very expensive. I mean, especially in Germany, you have really high labor costs. And but I showed you the example of the States.
Yeah.
So it's the double amount of labor cost basically. but it's still worth it because you substitute new materials. But you're right, because it would be great to have substitutes for reclaimed materials and to reduce. I mean, like, you could be very radical and say, like, just get rid of the labor, get rid of taxes on labor and tax the materials much more. And then it would completely. So there's this initiative called ReThink saying it makes much more sense. I mean, in Germany, labor tax is around 40%. Get rid of that and tax materials. So the materials would be much more reused with that. And there could be much more effort put into refurbishing the material. But unfortunately, there's no law in Germany. There's no substitutes. There's nothing.
Yeah, I don't think we can get rid of labor tax at all, but to change the balance a bit would be helpful, I guess.
Yes.
So this ReTax guys, they are German? It's only in Germany?
No, they are they are from the Netherlands, called ReThink.
Okay,
I think
interesting. Yeah,
ReThink,
ReTax.
but
Okay.
ReThink, I think so, but maybe.
No, I will Google it.
Yeah.
No worries.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, another question
But it's
about rock
yeah,
wool.
yeah.
There are a lot of rock wool in construction, also in Ukraine. How do you reuse this material? Does reused rock wool has the same insulation properties?
Unfortunately, we don't have experience with the insulation of rock wool right now. We work together with rock wool, so they do take back their own stuff in Germany. But we are not involved too much in that. So I unfortunately can't answer the question. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, so for them it's more like extended producer responsibility scheme.
Exactly. So I don't exactly know what they're doing then. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
clear.
insulation material is very difficult, to be honest. Yeah. So it depends a
Mm-hmm.
lot how it was put into the building, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
really economically worth it very often. And I said, like, there's no subsidies, so sometimes it's quite difficult.
Yeah. Maybe 2-1 and two more and we could wrap up. In one of the slides you said that if the building is older than 5 years, it's difficult to reuse it because the
Mhm.
energy efficiency standards are not good enough. Uh, is this valid for all buildings and in all cases, even if you substitute, replace windows and everything?
Um, Yeah, so basically it has something to do with this energy efficiency laws in Germany. So like these energy efficiency laws, they're getting stricter and stricter every year in Germany, which
Mm-hmm.
is already at the point where we think it doesn't make any sense anymore because very often we take oil produced insulation material. So we use oil produced materials to avoid producing more oil, which doesn't make any sense. So at
Mm-hmm.
the point where like the CO2 for the production of materials is more than the CO2 you can save for the insulation. And
Mm.
but still these tighter regulations lead to that these windows cannot be reused anymore in Germany. I mean, you can reuse them by do a new glazing, but that costs too much money. Or you put two windows at
Mhm.
one, and
Mhm.
then you can also fulfill it. But this is an architectural or an aesthetic choice, very often not done. Yeah,
So
yeah.
does it mean that in the near future you will be demolishing all the buildings that are older than 5 years?
No, sorry. No, this is a misunderstanding. No, like if you deconstruct, no. Like
Uh-huh.
if you deconstruct the building and this building and the windows in it are older than 5 years, then these windows are
Ah,
normally not getting reused. Sorry, that is a
okay.
misunderstanding.
Okay.
No, we deconstruct in Germany on average after 39 years. That is like the average time.
Oh, all
I'm
right.
sorry, that
No,
was
no,
missed.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it's about buildings, not windows. And yeah, probably my last one. But I see there are also some in the Q&A. The urban mining hub, with the participation of city of Berlin. What were the conditions for renting this space and this building? Was it provided by the city, or do you pay an annual fee of something?
Yeah.
And is it market based, or is it
Yeah.
reduced for a good cause?
So it was so basically the company Alba, which is basically the how to say the waste management company in Berlin. They give us the space for free, so we don't have to pay any rent, but we have people there taking care about that. Yeah, so we have to pay like everything around that maintenance and so on, but the rent is for free.
Wow,
And yeah, the city is not giving us money for that, but they are supporting that we're getting the rent for free. So this is a good agreement, I would say. And
it's amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
you
and I
you
mean it's
you
not easy to get this space in a large city.
it's super difficult. Well, I mean, Berlin is a little bit maybe easier than like Paris or something, but
Yeah,
but still but
but
still
still,
uh
I mean it's a large city, but
mhm.
still, yeah.
Um, who is the, like, according to all the documents, like, who is the owner of the building? It's still the company Alba, or it's you now?
No, it's so we only renting it.
Okay.
So we are the rent
It's a
tenant.
rent agreement for, let's say,
Yeah.
10 years, 20 years, 50 years.
Uh, yeah, without any limit. Yeah.
Oh, any of them. Okay.
Oh. And we open now around 5 more in all over Germany. So we already have the confirmation for Munich, for Stuttgart, for Aachen, for Düsseldorf, and most likely also Heidelberg. So all over Germany, actually.
Nice. I see in the, it was not a question in the Q&A. I see that our participant from Bulgaria offered help in
Ah,
reusing rock wool to another participant from Ukraine who asked this question. So I just pay your attention that you can see the email in the answered Q&As. And okay, will the recording be available? Yes, it will be available. It will come to your email in a week or so, within a week. Okay, it seems like we've answered all the questions, and it's been super interesting. Dominik, thank you so much for joining and for telling your story. And thank you for helping Ukraine with the windows. Indeed, we have very limited facilities for glass production, so that makes it very problematic.
mhm.
And yeah, get well soon, and I hope
Yeah, thank
to
you.
talk soon on some other initiatives and probably also potential cooperation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I was really glad to share our knowledge and also for everyone who participated. Thanks for tuning in, and you're also always happy to contact me for any questions, either on my mail address. You also have the presentation if you want to share it.
yes,
You're happy to, and also on LinkedIn you can follow me and can write me. So you can also get up to date on all the developments in Germany.
yes,
Yes.
amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your openness and kindness and your time. Thank you, Dominic.
Perfect.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.